And I remember looking at my colleagues and saying, this virus is going to change the world. We created a therapy which has multiple modes of action within a single drug. And I think this is the key to really unlocking the power of cancer therapy.
What keeps you going?
Coffee and chocolate. Also, conviction that this is really something that can make an impact.
I really enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Jennifer Altamonte. She's the founder and CEO of Fusix Biotech. She's working on oncolytic viruses that target cancer in some fascinating ways. Hearing her explain how these viruses can attack tumors from different angles gave me a new appreciation for what's possible. I also got to learn about her personal journey, growing up in the US, moving to Europe for a PhD, and eventually staying to build a life and company there. We talked about the transition out of academia, the realities of fundraising, and the conviction it takes to bring research from the lab out into the real world. So let's dive in. Introduce yourself and making that transition from academia to the world of business and entrepreneurship and your story and a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I started out as a molecular biologist. I have been working in the field of virus engineering for over 25 years. So I first started out my career at Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York, where I was working in gene therapy for about 5 years. And then I switched over to an oncolytic virus lab in that same department, which is where I found my niche. And I've been working in that space for now more than 20 years. And kind of where things get weird is, so I had this experience directly after my bachelor's degree. I just kind of needed to work. So I worked in this lab for like 7 years. I had like around 15 publications during this time. I was super productive. So it was kind of like a pre-doc in a way.
Yeah.
I then moved to Munich in 2006 to do my PhD because I was always feeling like a little bit of an imposter leading research projects without having a PhD. And an opportunity presented itself for me to come to Munich and do my PhD here. I had never been to Europe. Thought, why not have an adventure and get a couple of letters after my name, kill two birds with one stone. So I came over with the intention that I would stay here for 3 years, get my doctorate and come back. But somehow I got stuck in a good way. So I ended up staying for my postdoc, had a couple kids in between, ended up taking over the lab in 2016 when my supervisor went to industry. So I still have my academic lab. This is at the Technical University of Munich. But about 3 years ago, I founded Fusix Biotech because we had developed a technology in my lab, which I finally, after all of these years of working in the space, felt like was something that could really make an impact in the real world on patients. And I wanted to find a way to sort of bridge that from the lab to the real world. But I didn't necessarily want to out-license it to a company and not be a part of that. So this was kind of the initial like, okay, how can I do this? I don't have a business background. I don't know. I just started talking with a lot of people, with everybody who would speak with me, got a lot of input, started to realize quickly that there's a huge network of people out there who are actually quite happy and open to support other people. And I started to feel like somehow I could do this. I applied for some pre-seed funding. So in Germany, there are some nice opportunities to get non-dilutive pre-seed funding as a kind of pre-validation of an idea. So it's a pretty nice chunk of money for a couple of years to generate, in our case, the preclinical proof of concept and also some farm tox data. And by the end of that funding period, I felt actually quite confident that we could really do this. And during that time, I had also met my co-founders, and we sort of decided together that we want to do this together as a team. And so that's how Fusix was born. We're still now fundraising. So that's why I'm still sitting at the university and sort of trying to wear both of those hats at the same time and try to push things forward wherever I can, whether through non-dilutive academic grants or through the company. That's where we're at right now. We're raising our first VC round now, hoping that we will be successful in the next few months in order to stay on track to bring our lead candidate to patients within the next 2 years. That's kind of my personal goal.
Yeah. That is a non-traditional path.
Yeah. I didn't lie.
Yeah. It's still in Europe. Like that's where you're meant to be.
I'm still here. Yeah.
what the local scene is like in terms of biotech and funding in some of these different areas. I'm finding a lot of countries and spaces like they have their own routes to funding, and a lot of different incubators popping up in different places. And as Germany's pretty supportive of, you said there was a grant processor.
Yeah, it's all relative, right? So like
Yeah.
Germany likes to claim to be, one of the real leaders in not just biotech, but in entrepreneurship in Europe, and especially at the university where I am. It's the Technical University of Munich. They, I think, even have some kind of title of being like the leading German entrepreneurial university. We have also one of the best accelerators in Germany and in Europe. That said, it's not so much focused on biotech. And we do have certain hubs within Germany, like in Munich, in Berlin, for example, where there are sort of clusters of biotech startups and some ecosystems surrounding that and some resources. But if you go to like Boston or San Francisco, you quickly realize it's on a completely different level. So we've got a lot of catching up to do, although I think in the last decade, it's grown a lot. So I think it's just a matter of time. And there's going to be needing to be a bit of a change in mindset, because in general, German people and Europeans are a bit more conservative and not moving as quickly as the Americans do.
Yeah, I don't think any place is like Boston and San Francisco exactly.
No,
In that
are very special.
those are special. Yeah, I almost thought I had to move back to San Francisco to get back to that. But like we have a little center up here in Portland that's starting. So there's I feel like seeing it pop up in different places, but those are kind of the hubs for sure that we hope to be. What is it like to balance those two different worlds? Like you're literally in both. I've talked to a lot of people who have made the transition, but and then still dabbling in both. But it feels like you're kind of still.
I am very much in both. At any given moment, I'm wearing two hats. It's not easy, although I can't complain about it, because it is rather luxurious to have the comfort of and safety of being in the university while we try to get the company off the ground, because a lot of people don't have a full-time job. They're under pressure to, get a salary and to get the funding in the company so that they can keep the payroll going and pay the bills. Whereas we're, somewhat more flexible because we don't have a hard deadline in which we need to raise a certain amount of funding by. We all have day jobs. We all have, I'm able to keep research going. I mean, granted on a much smaller scale, but we can still move forward while we continue to fundraise. That said, it's going to slow down our path to the clinic and eventually to the market for sure. So, I mean, until now, it's been working well because there's so much overlap between my academic work and the company, but we're at a point where we've kind of reached the limit of what we can do in the academic setting. So now it's becoming more critical that we raise funds and begin the manufacturing scale up in order to really keep up with our internal timeline for developing, because as with any drug modality, there is also some time pressure that you are in the right place at the right time, and that, the magic bullet is not coming on the market before you, because we are the magic bullet. Yeah, it's challenging for sure. I don't sleep much, but I do love it. And so that is motivating, and it's helpful that it's not wearing, two very completely different hats. If my research lab was doing a completely different topic than the company, this would be much more difficult to manage. But as it is, it kind of works.
Yeah, no, I could see the challenges in that, but it seems like you're doing it the less stressful way. I mean, I don't think there's any no stressful way.
No, if it's not stressful, you're doing something wrong, I think.
Yeah. But fortunately, you're working on something that you really care about.
Yes.
And on that note, just to get a little more, maybe for the layman term or the lesser term, like what exactly is Fusix in terms of like what the modality and what the space that you're in and what problem you're solving?
The big problem is cancer. We can all appreciate that cancer is still very much a problem in our world. What is maybe confusing to people is that we have very innovative technologies that have been developed over the last decade, but people are still dying every day. And so why is that? The reason is that even though we have very highly targeted and very innovative, even immunotherapies, they tend to work by a single modality. And the complexity of cancer is that it's very well equipped to adapt to stressful situations. So if you attack or target a specific aspect of the cancer will change itself in order to evade the therapy. So what we do at Fusix is we try to attack the tumor from multiple angles. We've created a therapy which has multiple modes of action within a single drug. And I think this is the key to really unlocking the power of cancer therapy. And the root of our drug is a viral vector. So it's a so-called oncolytic virus. It's a virus which specifically replicates in cancer cells and then causes them to die. So this is a very basic and first layer of the therapy. Our platform is completely unique. So it's a precision engineered vector that was designed using components of two already existing oncolytic virus platforms. So we've combined them in a way to optimize safety as well as efficacy and to avoid pre-existing immunity, which was one of the challenges of the existing oncolytic virus products, because most of those were based on natural human pathogens to which we've been exposed, and we have antibodies to neutralize those. So we have this viral vector. It's unique, it's safe, it's effective at directly killing tumor cells, and then it also serves as a gene delivery platform to deliver therapeutic genes specifically to the tumor. So as it replicates within a tumor, it's then encoding these therapeutic genes, releasing them within the tumor microenvironment, where it can elicit its effect and sort of combine different therapeutic modalities within a single drug in that way, and also avoiding off-target effects because the therapeutic genes are expressed only in the tumor and nowhere else in the body. This is a platform technology. We have a pipeline of different vectors encoding for different therapeutic payloads, but we do have a lead candidate selected, which encodes for an immune stimulatory gene. So we have an enhanced immune effect. This is a very important aspect of the therapy because by using a virus as a cancer therapy, you create inflammation within the tumor. And one of the key challenges in cancer therapy is that tumors will block infiltration of immune cells. They will make themselves invisible to the immune system, which prevents them from being cleared, even though they don't belong in our body. And by using a virus to infect the tumor, you create this inflammation. The immune cells come in and then they see that there's this thing that doesn't belong, and then it will, sort of amplify this immune response in order to then attack additional tumor cells that might not even have been directly infected by the virus, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that's what I was reading about. That was super interesting. It's like that it's also alerting the body to then
Yes,
come
I
in.
think that's the key to, if you can enable the patient's own immune system to really not only join the fight, but actually lead the fight against the cancer, then you've got a very powerful drug, because it also means that you don't need to necessarily constantly administer the drug, but at some point the patient's immune system is educated and will continue the fight even after the drug is gone from the body.
Wow. Was there a moment when you realized that you were working on something in the lab and you're like, oh, I think this could be, or
Yes.
you remember that? What was that?
Yeah, there's actually an additional special aspect of this virus that I didn't mention because I didn't want to get too complicated, but our virus is killing in a very special way. So it's causing infected tumor cells to fuse with surrounding tumor cells. So it's making this sort of very bizarre chain reaction whereby a single infected tumor cell will fuse with surrounding tumor cells, and you get these foci of infection, and they look very cool under the microscope. And so I very distinctly remember when I initially rescued this virus, and I saw this effect.
Rescue the virus?
That's called a rescue because
I know.
you engineer it in a plasmid setting, and then you do kind of like a co-transfection, and then you rescue the infectious virus from the DNA. I very distinctly remember seeing this effect under the microscope for the first time, like these very cool looking, they're called syncytia, so these fused cells. And I remember looking at my colleagues and saying, this virus is going to change the world. And we all started laughing because that's such a ridiculous thing to say. And I was kind of joking, but I still remember that. And I think maybe it is. Maybe this is going to change the world.
Yeah, maybe it is.
At least for one person. Maybe one person can benefit, and that's enough for me.
That's the little video that you have on your website, where it's kind of what you.
So you've seen that, yes. So that's what I'm talking about.
Wow, I just imagining, because I'm watching the video now, I'm imagining you seeing that for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in real time, so it's not like.
Not quite. It doesn't look like that.
Dramatically, but I mean, even to see it in still image, it's still quite cool to see when you know what a monolayer of tumor cells normally looks like, and then you just see it's just these big blobs of dead infected cells.
That is cool. Yeah, really cool. You alluded to it a little bit before, but just a little more into kind of where you're at now in the process and what the next steps are for you at Fusix or the
Yes.
company.
Yes. So we're at an exciting time right now because we have selected our lead candidate, and I'm pretty confident that it's a good one. We've selected our lead indication, and this is also, very data-driven, but also market-driven, and there was a lot of reasoning behind it, so I feel also confident in that decision. And we've also already presented our data and our clinical development plan to the regulatory authorities in Germany, as well as the FDA, and gotten, very constructive and positive feedback. So I feel like we're kind of ready now to begin manufacturing, which is not an easy or fast or cheap undertaking. So this is exactly why we need to fundraise now and to begin the process, because it will take around 18 months from scale up to having a GMP ready drug product, and then, applying for the clinical trial. That's where we're at now. We just got a non-dilutive grant, which will support that process. So the scaling up part, which is great, also brings value to the company and will allow us to begin that process while we continue to fundraise. We're now, I would say, bridging this gap from preclinical to clinical. And if everything goes well, we should be able to begin clinical trials in around 2 years, which will be then very exciting.
It's an exciting time.
Yeah, for
Exciting.
sure.
Is the landscape pretty set up for that in Germany in terms of the manufacturing and biotech? And
So virus manufacturing in general, it's not like an off-the-shelf process. For vaccine viruses, there are kind of standard processes. But for oncolytic viruses, it's very much individual. So for every virus, there needs to be a very specific set of processes developed. And for our virus specifically, since this is a brand new virus, it doesn't occur naturally in the world, and nobody has tried to manufacture it before. It was a very ambitious process. So you need a host cell line to produce virus. Viruses do not exist without a host. So you need some kind of a host cell line to support virus replication. And then once you do that, you need to go through a series of steps to purify and concentrate the virus. This is not straightforward at all. This whole process of screening cell lines, finding one that would produce a high yield, but also a cell line which would be GMP compliant, and also having reasonable licensing conditions, because unless we own the cell line, you have to license it from a company. So a lot of factors that go in there. And then the whole process of scaling it up, optimizing all of the conditions, and then the downstream parts of the purification, concentration, this kind of took several years. And I'm happy that we were able to do this sort of in the academic setting, because it would have cost us a lot of money to do that outsourced at a CDMO. So we're in a good position now. We've done all of our homework. We've done all of this pre-work, but now we're ready to scale up beyond what we can do in our own in-house setting. And this is why we now need to transfer the processes, hope that they transfer and that they scale as we expect. Yeah.
I have a good feeling. So balancing those two things and your position at that, what keeps you going?
Coffee and chocolate, and a lot of wine. No, I think it's really like stubbornness and feeling like I've already invested so much of myself in this, I have to keep going, but also conviction that this is really something that can make an impact. And this is something that I didn't, it built up over time. In the beginning, I was sort of confident-ish, but skeptical, but over time, having seen more and more predictive preclinical data and different tumor models and so on, I feel pretty convinced now that what we have really has the potential to make a difference in patients. And I really just want to be able to see what we can do and if we can help people. And this is ultimately what drives me.
Yeah, it's important. Without the underlying purpose, conviction, those things
no, I think if you don't believe in what you're doing, you just would not keep going, because it is hard. Many days you just see failure, and it's very easy, I think, to get discouraged and just decide, okay, it's not worth it, unless you have this really deep underlying belief that in the end you are going to be at least you've done everything you can to try to be successful. There are no guarantees, and biology is weird, and you can't always predict, especially even if you have very convincing preclinical data. That definitely does not mean that it's going to translate into humans. So that's the risk that we take. But if we don't try, then we definitely don't succeed. So
I'm excited that you're trying. And then for your team, how did that come about? I've just always hear, obviously, it's not just you. There's importance of having people around you, not just you having to go do this every day on your own.
Definitely. Otherwise, I would be very lonely. I have three co-founders. This kind of evolved very naturally. So one of them actually did her PhD in my lab. So we had been working together anyway at around the time that the idea came to potentially found a company. From the very beginning, interested in entrepreneurship, and she had joined me in attending various boot camps and so on and writing these grant applications. So that was very natural. One of my other co-founders, Marcus, had founded a company before. I knew him from the academic setting. I knew that he had already founded a company a few years earlier. So I had gone to him very early on just to get advice and ask, whether I'm crazy or how I could do this. And he took an interest in the project. We started meeting more regularly. And because he has a medical background, it was very complementary because he had a lot of insights into clinical development. He had very close ties to regulatory experts. We kind of mutually decided that it would be great if he would join the team. And then he also introduced me to our fourth co-founder, Marian, who is an expert in viral vector manufacturing, which is convenient. He also had worked for many years in biotech, so he also had a bit of a different perspective, also a strong background in regulatory affairs. So it just blended very nicely. Of course, we do have this gap in that none of us has a business background, and this we compensate for through our network, I would say. From the very beginning, I just started talking with everybody who would talk with me. And also I participated in, I don't even know how many accelerator and incubator programs over the years, some of them more valuable than others. But through those programs, I also came in touch with a lot of great mentors, experts in various aspects of drug development, business, even law, and all of those important aspects. And that's been really helpful. So I feel like no matter what question we have, always have someone in our network who we can ask, in a way, compensate for our small team in that way. But ultimately, once we raise money, we obviously will expand the management team and then start building up a scientific team to fill in the gaps and also be able to continue the R&D program, because even though we have the lead asset, which is headed towards the clinic, we don't want to stop there, and we want to continue developing the platform and develop other assets as well.
On that, making that transition from academia, and you mentioned not having the business background, like what are some of the biggest lessons learned or surprises, I guess? And then also on that, any advice that you have to give for people in your situation, academia, kind of transitioning into that world, or things that you've learned?
I think I was very naive in the beginning, and that might have actually been a good thing, because I think if I had really known how hard it was going to be, I might not have done it. In the beginning, it was very humbling, I would say, to realize, okay, you have to write the first business plan. You've never done that. I've written tons of, academic grants and papers and really scientific writing, but to write a business plan was something completely new for me. So it was really like the very first steps, realizing like, okay, I don't know how to do this. There was no chat GPT at the time. It just became obvious in the beginning that a network was necessary. Oh, actually, through one of our pre-seed grants, we were even required actually to have, I think, at least one coach. We ended up having two, and that was quite helpful because it gave us the money to actually pay consultants to help us in the early steps. So that was helpful at that time, mainly through these accelerator programs, and also we have a local, it's called BioM. It's like a Bavarian biotech cluster who actually financed one of the grants, and they also have a great network and connected us with important experts. I think I really underestimated how difficult it would be to raise money. Our timing was also bad. So we were just coming out of COVID when we needed to start fundraising seriously, and it was just exactly the wrong time because everybody was pulling back. I mean, everyone was just holding on to their money, and that's still the case now. I think there's become a much more intense risk aversion right now, especially in early stage biotech. So that's something that I probably should have expected but didn't. I don't know. I think I'm still learning, but I think it was maybe in some ways helpful that I didn't really know what was in store. My main learning was really just to never be so overconfident that you think that you can do it all on your own, because it takes a village to build a company, that's for sure. But luckily, there are so many people who will help. I don't know, it was not my personality type to ask for help, but that's something that is definitely needed. So my advice also to others would be take advantage of network and of anybody who is willing to talk with you, because even people where you think like, oh, they're only marginally related or probably can't help me, oftentimes they're the most helpful. They might just know the magical person who you need, or themselves know something that maybe was not your original question, but was something that you also need more information on. Going to events, really, it takes a lot of time and effort, but it's so important and so helpful, especially also just to make yourself more visible. And what I always try to emphasize, especially among my scientific colleagues, is that even though we don't have a business background, we can, if we want to, become entrepreneurs, and that it's really important, even if people don't want to take that step themselves, but that they recognize the innovations that they're developing in their labs and potential for commercialization, and that they find the right pathway to bring those things to the world. Because otherwise, you write a paper and then you just put the idea in a drawer, move on and do something else. And I think a lot of great ideas just get lost because people don't know what to do with them. So I think this is something that's like, the awareness is becoming more because there are more and more of these incubator programs, and at universities there are a lot more initiatives to have events to inform doctoral students about entrepreneurship and all of that. I'm seeing that a lot, and I think that's going to change things in the future. But for the older generation, there's a lot of just lack of knowledge about how we can take our ideas, especially our patents. So if you had the at least foresight to file a patent, but then don't do anything with it, that's such a pity. So there needs to be this bridge, whether people take that step themselves or find another way to get those ideas out into the world and developed, is important, because probably there are great ideas that are just sitting on somebody's desk.
There's so many. I was just talking to another entrepreneur. He had exited a company, so he was looking at what to do potentially next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's doing. He said he's going to all these universities and dusting off some of these technologies that are so innovative that are just sitting there.
Yes, I think a lot of the tech transfer offices also don't know what to do with these patents. I mean, it's a shame because they pay a lot of money to file them and then they just get stuck. I think that's starting to change maybe, and it varies a lot from university to university.
No, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think the US is doing that a lot better than Europe is at the moment, but
okay, we're doing some things.
We're
okay,
doing something right. Yeah.
Doing something right. Yeah, and you mentioned the networking aspect, asking people for help. I think that's a big one. I just see, and just how you touched on it, but I get this a lot. Is sometimes surprises you how much people are willing to help.
Yes,
like
it's incredible, and oddly enough, it's so much easier than in academia, where you would think like, we just care about science. It's a bunch of nerds, like everybody's sharing information, but that's not the case at all. It's so difficult to find really good collaborations in academia, especially here, but it's not the case at all in the entrepreneurial world. This is also what drives me, because it's so much fun to go to these events and just talk with people, because everyone is so nice and friendly and open, and it's refreshing.
They're not hiding.
Like, what do you want? You must have an ulterior motive. Occasionally they do, but oftentimes it's like people get successful and they want to pay things forward. And it's just, I think that's how it works. And that's great.
Yeah, that is great. It's refreshing.
It is.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good to see. That's exciting for what's next for you all there. I'm always curious about AI because this is something that I've focused on. But you mentioned that chat with ChatGPT. Like, that's another thing I'm curious about, because talking to other founders, how would you utilize AI even in the creation of like documentation? I'm always curious, or are you all using that at all in your business on a day-to-day, and how do you see that moving forward? I know we spoke to it a little before we hopped on the call. A lot of talk is with digital health and with med tech, and anything else you see that being involved in biotech, or how that could be helpful moving forward?
In biotech, especially drug development, there are at the moment, limited applications of AI. We definitely use it for expediting, writing texts and things like that. That makes things a lot easier, or even designing images and things like that. But I think AI in general is really accelerating product development in medtech and digital health. That's much more important and central to those technologies. But for us, I think going forward, to some extent have already applied it, but hope to apply it more in the future, is really on, for example, looking for biomarkers, predictive biomarkers that might inform us which patients could respond best to our therapies. Also looking at, different markers within the tumor that might even inform us of whether or not the therapy is working. So there's a lot of digital data out there from patient tumors that we can exploit in order to use predictive algorithms to mathematically calculate, which tumor entities could potentially be most amenable to our treatment. So that's something that we've done a little bit already, but hope to exploit more in the future. And ultimately, we're hoping to develop specific biomarker that will serve as a companion diagnostic throughout the course of treatment, which might be a serum marker, it might be a tumor marker, but there we might also rely on AI to assist us in that process. It's mainly a tool to help move faster, to just get through admin faster, things like that. But I think in general, it's really speeding up the time to market for a lot of technologies, because a lot of times AI tools are the central asset, and other times it's just really kind of assisting in accelerating all of the development. I think it's quite incredible what's already happened until now, but I think in the next couple of years, we're going to see a huge revolution in how technologies are developed. The pace and even the budgets. I mean, things can be done much more cheaply now simply because they're so much faster.
Yeah.
A lot of things even scientific processes can be reproduced in silico rather than in the wet lab. And this saves not only resources, time, and money, but even potentially use of animal materials. And for animal protection, this is also becoming an issue, that we can reduce the number of animal studies because we can model a lot of things using AI tools.
Yeah, I'm excited for what the future holds.
A little bit scared, but also
yeah. I feel like it's right to just have a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But mostly, the more I see, I'm just really excited. Yeah, I look at it as an enhancement of human intelligence, not a
replacement. Yes, that's exactly, I think, the right attitude.
There was a chief of Google that spoke at a conference I was at, and their AI modeling. That's how he spoke to that, and that feels good to me. It's like, this is enhancing human intelligence, allows us to move and do things quicker, and innovation happens. But yeah, I think a little bit of this early stage, there's a little trepidation, rightfully so.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, for some things it works great, and other things you can see like, okay, we're not quite there yet. So we still do need the human component, for sure.
You for sure do. I'm sure, especially with some of the detail stuff that you're doing. Yeah, to like redraft a proposal or put something together, maybe it's okay. But to actually do some real science.
I would never ever rely 100% on it. It's a good tool to help and to make things go faster. But you can never just copy paste.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
No, I mean, it's often not accurate. You can tell when AI has written something. So there's also this new wave of like, how do we humanize AI generated text? And then it becomes really interesting.
It's happening.
It's happening,
train it. Yeah, a way to train it. Yeah, I think for systems and processes and things like that it can auto set up and do things. There's just a lot of application, but yeah, we're still getting there for some things. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Jennifer. It's great just hearing your story and get to know more about what you're working on there at Fusix.
Thank you so much for giving me this platform and being so patient, listening as I ramble on. It's always fun to tell the story and hopefully inspire others.
Yeah, I feel like I learned a lot, and just to encourage people that have those aha moments, to not keep them in the lab, to find ways. And Jennifer, I feel like you've shown that if you get creative and if you have passion about it, you can go out there and find people that will support you. So hopefully other people hear that message and that you can do it too.
You can do it.
There's coffee and chocolate, So.
Exactly.
You've been listening to Stories in Life Sciences, sponsored by MedAccess AI, where we explore people, ideas, and breakthroughs shaping the future of biotech and healthcare innovation. To learn more, visit medaccessai.org and subscribe on YouTube to watch the full conversations and new episodes as they launch. I'm Christopher Wilson. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep shaping the future one story at a time.